Absolutely, 100%. Okay, very good. So we are at 1 o'clock, and you know, we always start on time. That's what we do. So I wanted to start off a little bit different today. I have actually a video um, that kind of is going to set the tone of our conversation today with our special guest, so that everybody knows the great work that our guest has been doing. And then we're going to go into the conversation between Professor Bayyinah Bello and our special guest, Nedgine. So let me go ahead and play that video for you guys now.
I don't think it's done without truly defining equity and pushing for it very explicitly. If we were to recruit from that 1%, right, that elite, that successful group that has gotten to university here in Haiti, for illusion of meritocracy, it reinforces this illusion that says that those who are able to achieve at the highest levels of academic success are those who are best equipped and best prepared to lead a cultural revolution. And at the end of the day, that's incorrect. At the end of the day, there are systems in place here in Haiti and in many different countries to specifically keep those who will disrupt, undo, dismantle oppression down. And so if we were to only focus on recruiting among those who get into the 1% of universities, we are sending a very powerful message there, that all those that don't get into that top echelon are inferior, that they are not equipped to lead their own liberation. We're basically saying that if you haven't achieved X definition of status, X definition of professional success, you are not worthy of your own dignity and fighting for your own freedom. That is so dangerous because it's replicating the violence with which oppressive structures are created. I actually truly believe that we need to be very careful about what's strategic just so that the ends justify the means, right? Instead of doing the really hard work of understanding that if your belief doesn't align with the action, why are we doing this work? I worry that when we talk about those who've experienced inequity leading this fight, it's not about saying we've heard one voice, we now know what it looks like. We've been to one community, we now know what poverty looks like. We're looking for that one voice who can inform us, and then we'll just kind of go on our merry way because we've been informed. Coming in and saying, here is the way, here is the key, here is the definition of academic success. That is not the solution forward. We need to look inward to push forward because it is the people who are in this context and in our communities and those who have experienced inequity who have the solution already. We believe that our communities will lead the way. Not our staff, not a founder, not a mission statement, but that our communities already have the solution, but they've just been relegated to an inferior position. And I think if we are so quick to jump to this idea of collective leadership of the community, of leadership that transforms a society, and we forget to invest in the very human beings who are telling us what authentic leaders look like, we're going to be skipping several steps and we're not going to be creating true equity. We're basically looking for a definition that doesn't exist. We're looking for things that have not yet been written down because the people who have the solutions and have these definitions haven't been empowered or allowed to have a seat at the table. There is inherent urgency in fighting for and within your community. I have spoken with so many of our teacher leaders at Unsafe Ayiti who feel that if they slip, if they are not giving their all, if their commitment is not where it should be, it's not the kids who fail. They are themselves failing because they consider themselves as members of that community. There's a sense of attachment there. When you live in that community or raise that community, you're not fighting for it. And so I'm grateful that we have teacher leaders who have been raised and are now working in the communities because their sense of urgency is through the charts. It is a sense of urgency that has no boundaries and it has no deadlines. It's not going to end with a 2-year program, but it's been that fire within them even before Unsafe Ayiti was there. We are just unleashing what they've already been born to do. At Unsafe Ayiti, we believe deeply in allyship. Like, we actually don't use that word lightly. Partner, I think, can come and go and have so many different definitions, but to be an ally of a movement, I think, has become overlooked. The power of it has become overlooked. And so for those who are the privileged few, I think there's a role to play in terms of being collaborators and allies of this movement, but not getting in the way of those who are driving this forward and are equipped to drive it forward, because they are coming from the very roots and the very essence of what we need for true liberation. And so I think the privileged few, I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of self-discovery and the idea of how privilege and how internalized oppression has even shaped their own path. But at the end of the day, I actually think there's an incredible power in being part of the coalition for movement. I would say you are kind of like the outer boundary of this movement that's basically making it possible for those who've experienced inequity to move forward without hindrance, right? Because you can navigate and cross through certain contexts that those who've experienced inequity will never be able to get through. So how are you unlocking doors and just moving aside so that somebody who's experienced inequity can walk through? How are you doing certain actions, saying some words, taking certain risks, leaving behind certain relationships so that those who've experienced inequity can lead from within?
All right, fantastic. So that was our guest for this afternoon, and I'm going to hand it over to Professor Bayyinah Bello to carry on the rest of the program.
Thank you, Franz. Greetings to everyone, and specifically to our guest, Nedgine. I met Nedgine a couple of years ago. I was fascinated by the program that I found her involved in. But before we do all this, let's call on all the forces of the universe to take their places from within us, to feed us the strength, the information we need, which will give us the strength, the power, so we can bring into matter that which our heart desires. In the name of all those who've gone before me, I welcome each and every one of you to Bayyinah in France. And Nedgine, welcome among us. I don't see Nedgine yet.
I'm here. Hello, nice to be with you. Hello, Professor Bayyinah, how are you?
Fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. This is a very humble, but very powerful woman. And when you go to her area in the Central Plateau, that's when you can see the great work that this woman is doing. Fabulous young woman doing wonderful things. But before we get to what she does, get into details, we're gonna do what we do every week now for a while. We're gonna read our poem. And I shall ask Nedgine to begin for us with freedom or liberté. I don't know which way you're gonna go. You have choice.
Sure, and are the words already shared with everybody?
They should have them because we've been, but we go ahead.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll catch up.
Give me one moment, I'm just gonna have it right in front of me.
All right. We start with freedom every time because that's the key to everything. Until you can build that concept in you, all the rest is slave deals. So whenever you're ready, Nedgine.
Yes, thank you. So I will start with the first paragraph. Freedom. Our first mistake was that we thought of freedom as a place rather than a continuation of struggle. Tyranny never sleeps.
Sorry, you said first paragraph, you read two.
You're correct. Would you like me to return and resume?
Yes, let's go back.
Okay. Freedom. Our first mistake was that we thought of freedom as a place rather than a continuation of a struggle.
Tyranny never sleeps.
Our second mistake was that we thought of freedom as a goal rather than as a launching pad from which to reach our goals.
Without purposes, freedom hardly matters.
Our third mistake was that we thought that freedom would make us free. That, however, is license, not freedom at all.
Freedom is being shackled to identity, purpose, and direction, and being in constant pursuit. Being in constant pursuit. So what do you think of this? What is your opinion on this poem? Which of course we remind you is nearly 5,000 years old, that Amunhotep, our Ethiopian philosopher ancestor, wrote this poem. And as you see, he did not declare, he put a question mark. He invites us to think about it, deliberate, to develop a concept of it. So, what do you think, Nedgine?
I appreciate you starting with this and for introducing me to this poem. There's a lot of thoughts, and in no particular order. Some of the things that came to mind are the ways in which, like you said, this is an invitation. He's asking a question and not answering it for us at 100%. But I think it invites us to have more nuance to the definition and the words we tend to throw around, right? Freedom, I think, is a word, justice, liberty. Even the words in the last paragraph here about identity. It's a word we throw around, and I appreciate literature and poems like this that help us pause and go deeper. So for example, when I'm thinking about the second mistake that we often make, as the author invites us to consider, I think about our revolution, the one that gets so much attention, but that sometimes stops at, look at what we did so that in 1804, fill in the blank, rather than seeing everything else that came out of the fight to get to 1804 and the efforts that were made afterward, but often don't get the same attention because it may not fall into our pretty box of definition of what it looks like to launch from being a free people and doing what else happened. So for example, a lot of the things that came out in the great documentary 1804, such as the creation of a mint, such as the policies, such as the creation, the construction, there's so much that I think our foremothers and forefathers thought of as a launching pad, but I think we are so stuck in the date of 1804, we forget to think of what they then did across the hemisphere with it. And so I think this is an encouragement for us to realize freedom is a launching pad, which I appreciate. The other thing I wanted to share before I invite you, maybe Professor Bayyinah, to add your thoughts, the last sentence is so striking to me, because as you know, at Unsafe Ayiti, we talk a lot about identity. And what's interesting is it's the first time they introduce it, the writer, as part of the last paragraph. And even the word identity has so much nuance, this idea of being shackled to our identity and shackled to the idea of what constitutes our multifaceted, complex, messy, beautiful identity, right? It could be the struggle, it could be the joy from within, it could be our native tongue, it could be our religions, it could be the way that we converse, the way we say honneur, respect. There's so much that is part of that identity, but unfortunately, we've been so distanced from it. There are people to this day, unfortunately, as Haitians, who say, what is really our Haitian identity? And that's what reminded me of a lot of conversations we have with our teacher leaders and students about the real truth of identity and how we have to sometimes peel back the onion of what people have imposed on us to really come to the core of what that identity is.
Absolutely. Thank you, thank you. So now that we have put the core of Bayyinah and Friends, freedom, that's our purpose. That's where we want to go. We want everyone to be clear that without freedom, all the rest does not exist. It's just illusion. A true person, a free person, does not follow fashion blindly. A true person, a free person, knows their limits. They know when they have enough. There is nothing that you want more and more and more and more and more and more of. Even your body will reject more when the body has enough. So let's ponder on all of this. And as we go on, so who is Nedgine Paul?
Nedgine Paul Deroly is a proud daughter of Haiti. I was born in Haiti, started some schooling in Haiti, and then my family, my sister, my brother, mother, father, we immigrated to the United States. But I always stop there and say, while immigrating, I am grateful to have in my parents, my mother and my father, people who said their 3 children would not forget where we came from. And that even if we moved in the context, which many of you may know, was less than favorable for Haitian immigrants, we would be fed and we would be full with information about our identity, our history, our culture, so that information would combat ignorance. So that when the kids teased and the kids, just relied on simple stereotypes to refer to us as boat people, right? We would respond with information. And so I'm grateful for that, because I think looking back, that planted the seeds of returning home early on. And so fast forward to being somebody who loved school, Professor Bayyinah, and loving education, I knew early on I wanted to be involved in teaching. And it wasn't until I started returning home as a teenager that I would meet with other peers who loved school just like me, but who would describe something that I couldn't reconcile in my head. Because I knew our powerful past and present, I knew what we had as assets, but then I would think about the statistics that were being shared with me, right? The low access to education, the 1% of students getting to university, etc. And so I said that seems to not reconcile. What happened to the earliest constitution that proclaimed education to be free and should be available in every commune? Well, that wasn't the word then, but should be available to all. What then would happen over 200 years later to have us sit on an education system that was in shambles? And so I did research. I decided to major in history as a university student and focus my research on the history of the education system. And it was then I started to realize that our system isn't in shambles by chance, but rather it's broken by design.
Absolutely.
So it's very intentional. And that's what would propel me to continue to do the research and to listen. I would say it wasn't just about reading. As you know so well, Professor Bayyinah, if you've worked with our teacher leaders, many of the books were written by the victor, right? We know the story of the chase is written by the victor. And so you're not going to find the truth in a lot of the books that have been published. And so I am so grateful that I had a chance to listen to oral tradition, to ask questions, to dig deep into the proverbs and the rich traditions and the click-clacks and all the things that make up our true history and the truth buried within. And that propelled me to say, that is what it looks like when our education system could be rooted in the assets that already exist. And so I decided, after doing some teaching and earning my master's in international education policy, to return home and to join shoulder to shoulder with people who've been in this work for decades. I have no illusion that I came with a new idea. Rather, I wanted to come and follow the lead of people who've been proclaiming truth for so long when it comes to what education can unlock and unleash. And so when I returned to Haiti, I decided to listen for 3 to 4 more years. And that's when the wisdom of many community elders helped me understand that culture, customs, and community has always been the basis for powerful movements in Haiti. But again, by design, those three things are not in our classrooms. They have intentionally stripped our curriculum, our classroom, our education system of culture, customs, and community. And so what the Unsafe Ayiti movement is, it's a movement of civic leaders who are going to reintegrate culture, customs, and community into how we teach and how students learn. And I'm so grateful that after about 6 years of doing this work and the hundreds of teacher leaders who form our family, we've now tripled a lot of the student outcomes. But for us, it's not just the academic piece, rather it's unlocking the genius of students who will create this new form of Haitian citizen.
Absolutely. And I was very grateful when I met Nedgine the first time and discovered that there was somebody else. What basically we had the same, we'd not seen each other, did not know about each other much, but realized that, hey, this is the same work. So let's go on. That's, that was very, very important. I did a little research myself on you and see that you won several prizes, that please tell us about that. I know you're a very humble person, but it's important for our youth to hear because the tendency is, if you did anything bad, we all would know about it. But when you get the prizes and the this and the that, more difficult for us to hear. So please tell us. Act as if you were tooting my horn.
Thank you for the invitation. And I appreciate you let everybody know this is not typically how I share, but I appreciate the push to appreciate. And it's funny, it reminds me, Professor Bayyinah, about one of the traditions at Unsafe Ayiti, where we've literally realized the muscle that comes with saying thank you and chapeau bas and good job needs to be redeveloped. And so we won't have a meeting or a community gathering without having that kind of tradition and that ritual. So thank you for the invitation to push me also to do that. So I will start with the honor of having been selected by the Echoing Green Fellowship in 2014 as one of the top social global innovators. They choose groups of young people around the world. For example, my class represented over 25 different countries who are pushing on social justice to be the core of work we do across sectors. So you could be a doctor who's saying, where are we perpetuating racist ideologies and supremacist techniques in medicine? Or you could be somebody working in agriculture, realizing that we are destroying what is locally made so that everyone looks the same, right? Or eats the same way. Of course, for me, it was about how is education perpetuating generations of oppression and trauma? How do we heal from that and replace it with our powerful existing assets? And so I was selected for that fellowship in 2014. And then most recently, I was grateful to be the first member of the cohort of the Obama Foundation Fellowship. After his administration, he decided to bring together different civic leaders who think civic leadership might be a way for us to have different conversations about what community could look like. And so I'm so grateful. I remember the first time I heard I was selected, I said, Ayiti, just so proud to be able to represent another view, right? That sometimes people don't have when they immediately hear the word Ayiti.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much. Chapeau bas, that's right. Every time you go to Unsafe Ayiti, the first thing, chapeau bas, boo! Yes, because we're losing this ability. It used to be a natural thing. That's one of the things that shocked me starting in the 80s, that you would go somewhere and you say good morning and nobody answers. That you give something to someone and the person does not say thank you. If they say it, it's like, I gotta say thank you. It's like, if I don't say it, you might. Please. It makes you grander when you say thank you, when you say I'm sorry, when you say, and mean it. We don't mean mouthing things. okay? But that used to be the natural way for us. Haitians never would step in front of someone without saying, oh, excuse me, no, no. Now we have to train ourselves, you know, and I really appreciate that when I went to my first meeting with Anseye for Ayiti, see how they, you know, they go about congratulating each other, applauding each other, and that's very, very, very important, and integrating this to the natural teaching technique.
That's right.
And that, you know, very important. So tell us more about Nedgine.
So Nedgine is somebody who believes that there is a lot of truth in history. Nedgine is somebody, this might be my bias because that was my background in terms of my academic studies at university, but I find that history is today. I've said that phrase a few times recently because in addition to trying to be ambitiously looking forward, I think I know a lot of the work of Fondation Felicity also encourage us to learn and look back as we walk forward. And I think we've lost that reflex. I don't think we teach history well at all. And that's not unique to us as Haitians. I think there's a lot of work to be done to really think about the value of history and uncovering the messy and the beautiful truths within it. But I'm grateful that we've been able to reinsert that into the way that we work with our teacher leaders. I'll give you one example. So instead of us just saying that we want to change the techniques of teaching and learning and eliminate corporal punishment, right? That's a big discussion among many educators in Haiti and other countries. We've said it's not enough to come to a teacher and say, look at how you're harming the children. Like, get rid of the agenou, all of the techniques that cause physical harm. We realized that it's not enough to keep it at that surface. We had to start asking the question, where did corporal punishment come from? Why did we automatically assume it's a Haitian discipline practice? Why do we accept that without questioning? Because when you do the questioning, you realize that is not in our DNA as a people. We do not hit, we don't use forms of physical aggression to discipline. And so it's been interesting to peel back the layers of the historical reasons for a practice instead of just saying that's good, that's bad. Because I think it creates more sustainable and real, sincere change in somebody's mindset and somebody's behaviors when we talk about where this came from. So that's one of the many conversations we have about shifting teaching and learning practices by Professor Bayyinah. The other one, of course, is Creole as the language of instruction. It's so surprising and upsetting to me that we're still having this debate. And it reminds me of a quote, and I think it's Toni Morrison, please correct me if I'm wrong, where she says, racism is a distraction. It's making us have the same arguments and the same debates about our value as a people and our identity to distract us from unleashing our genius every day. Imagine how many hours has been spent by academics, rightly so, but still having the debate in 2020 about mother tongue. It's incredible to me. And so I hope we move past that distraction as a people and start having the real conversation, Professor Bayyinah, about how we raise the bar of excellence, because mediocrity is killing us in education.
That's true.
The idea that kids can pass with 5 out of 10 or 6 out of 10, why would we be surprised that only 30% are passing niveau fondamental, the primary school? And so us at Unsafe Ayiti, in addition to infusing culture and customs in our work, we want to have a different conversation about the audacity of quality for everybody and not lowering the bar just because it's difficult to get there. And so that's a lot of the work that we do, Professor, is that we are trying to have the conversation that 1, quality should be deserved and received by everyone, and 2, we can get there. As was shared in the video by Florence, thank you for sharing that video. We don't believe you have to import talent to get
right.
quality. Our movement says the people who live in Gaumont will uplift Gaumont. The people who live in Boucankare have all of the assets that are waiting to be unleashed to be teachers of their own children and make Boucankare a model community that even Port-au-Prince should be honored to follow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. See, it comes from the problem is at the head. Okay. whoever sets up the pattern, a pattern that says, you know, and we'll find it in everything. In education, you just illustrated it so well, but we can also say in economics. Right now in Ayiti, maybe the most popular economic person, expert, is somebody who wrote a book saying, why did Ayiti chose to be poor? Okay. So without reading the book, I already understand this is somebody who knows nothing about history, because they're just looking at what's there and they assume Haitian chose for things to be that way. They don't even have 50 years back, because if we had chosen this, then 50 years ago wouldn't have been the way it was. 100 years back wouldn't have been the way it was. See, but the person has no back perspective and therefore cannot have any front perspective, because the present is just passing. But in order to make for the present to be worth something, you have to understand where it came from, what happened that brought you here. And once you know why you're standing here the way you're standing, in the condition that you're standing here, then if you know the whys and the hows, then it's easy to track forward. So that's why we say at Fondation Felicity, history is learning your past so you can understand your present. And once you get that light from the past that makes you understand the present, then that same light would shed the way to the better tomorrow. You can go ahead and make a future. But if you limit it to repeating what others say, you will, you're not going anywhere. You're stuck and you will be writing very stupid things. The so-called international, the foreigners, okay, have written many, many things. They have Haiti's poverty card, Haiti's identity card, Haiti's poverty identity card, something like that. They have the Haiti's birth, death, the rate of death, the rate of the, mother's death. They have death for blah, blah. They have nothing that says what Haiti has. But they are here every day taking things away and carrying it away. So it's clear why they don't write about what Haiti have, because what Haiti have is what they want to take away. And in order for them to steal it without you objecting to it or fighting for it, you must ignore that it is there. That's what the program is. So that's why it's so important to have movements like Anseye for Haiti, who is awakening people as to what we have, our potentials, what we can do, and trusting that, hey, we all are entitled to the best. The best is not for some. The best is for everyone. And that's what makes Anseye for Haiti such a very important. And Nedgine, we thank you for bringing Anseye to Haiti to Haiti.
I appreciate that. I had to come home. That's all. That's what it's about, and that's why I started by sharing a bit about my father and my mother. I wanted to add one more thing, Professor Bayyinah, about some of what we ignore, because I don't think education is unique in only looking at deficits, but I think we have the prize. For some reason, educators are wrapped up in looking where things are broken or unable to move forward rather than looking at assets. I think we need to do a whole thinking about how education entraps us. And I wanted to mention one more thing that we realized we had to unlock as part of the Unsafe YT movement, and that's what we call collective leadership, collective action. And I know a lot of people still ridicule the fact that our slogan on the flag says what it says. But I think, again, if we have more nuance, we can't ridicule it, because when we actually study the history of movements that sometimes don't get a lot of attention, from the Kakuo to, to what happened in Wakaima, there's so much about unity that people have infiltrated education systems and said, if this is where unity is created, we will stop it even before it has a chance. And that's what we're seeing in our education system. You are taught to be egotistical. You are taught to be selfish. You are taught to say, I'm not sharing with my comrade, I'm not sharing with my brother or sister, because that's not how I will succeed at this test. And I can't tell you how difficult it was, Professor Bayyinah, to get our enseignant leaders and our teacher leaders to start to build the muscle of collaboration among, even parents were saying, no, my child will not share their book. And so all of that muscle, I wanted just to highlight that other piece, because the collaboration aspect of it is a lie that we have accepted. The idea that Haitians don't collaborate with each other. And the more we continue to believe that lie and that myth, the harder it will be for us, right, to tap into that power.
Absolutely. And to what you say, I will add an example that I often use in my classrooms, in the classrooms at the university. At some point, somebody's gonna say, yeah, you know, Haitians can't get along, Haitians can't, you know, nobody does anything for anybody. I just go and say, oh, tell me, Nedgine, those glasses that you're wearing, where did you get them from? My aunt who was in Boston sent the money, and oh, really? How about that nice dress you're wearing? My cousin, da, da, da. I said, and Haitians don't do nothing for Haitian, right? We live in Ayiti on each other. That's the reality, okay? I don't have any money. I'm not a big time nothing, but there is somebody who cooks for me. Even if I give a little money, but that's not worth what she's doing. That's the reality. But she has a willingness. Besides, oh yeah, she does, she needs a job and she needs a little money. That's true. She also takes care of that. But that's not it. She has the willingness. There are many places in this world, even the person who has nothing is not willing to do anything for a little bit of money. So even what we call a job is often not a job when we look at the reality of it. But it still goes on in Haiti because Haitians have this ability to collaborate under any excuse. Yeah, it's a 2,000 goods, 5,000 goods a month. Yeah, that's the base of the collaboration. But if you look very closely, that's not true. It's really the willingness. And we'll find that most true Haitian will do something else in return. We all know that salary is nothing. So when the person tells you, well, they have this problem, they have school is coming, you know that you have to help with paying the school. You know that you have to help, they're not feeling well, then hey, listen, the doctor is on you. That's the reality. And that's normal. It's not because you're doing them a favor, but we're both doing each other favors, and the little monthly salary is not the base of our relationship. The real base is the collaboration.
That's right. That's right. I think we need to be audacious enough to redefine the terms when they don't respect the way that we bring them to life. I think, again, it goes back to education, of course, right? We just accept certain terms and say, let's go to the skills, right? I remember you made a beautiful intervention in a speech, I guess, to some of our teacher leaders, Professor Bayyinah, where you were saying, I appreciate how Unsafe Iits is developing the competencies of students. Instead of just saying memorize this fact or memorize this formula in math, we want to develop collaboration, we want to develop critical thinking and problem solving skills. But don't overlook the ways that our students are bringing those skills already to the classroom. Because exactly. When you're struggling to find energy to have some kind of power in your home, as you gave that example, Professor, you go through 7 different steps to solve that problem. While somebody who might be in a country where there's no power outages just flips the switch. That's not critical thinking. It happens to them naturally. I love that example you shared, and it has stuck with us, because sometimes we also need to catch ourselves when we don't value the skill sets we bring because of the work we do every day in community, in family, and in our country.
Absolutely. I think I counted one time. For me to have light at night, I need to think of 27 different things.
27?
27, yes. I have to remember to put gas in the generator. I have to remember to put water in the batteries of the inverter. I have to remember to have somebody check the inverters, blah, 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 blah. I have to, I counted, I listed it. I said, whoa, I'm a hero. I've got to unite.
And
Yes.
both can be true, because I worry that sometimes people hear us and say, but that's not okay. We shouldn't still be talking about the lack of power in 2020. And I think it both can be true. You are a hero. You have 27 skill sets being developed, and we need to fight so that we're not having the same power outage conversation in 2020. Both can be true. And we're not lowering the bar just because we're trying to value the skill sets that come with survival.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. And that's where nuance is. That's why you can't take ready-made recipes and think that recipe will work. Oh, they do it like that in Spain, so we could do it that way. No, Spain does not have your climate, does not have your sun, does not have your type of rain, does not have any of the stuff. So we can't take something from somewhere and then put it there. No, we have to think it through, study it, dissect it, and then resolve our way of doing it and how it's going to work for us. Yes, that's a must. So now tell me about, how did you go about building? I know you must have started with what, 3, maybe 5 or 6 people? How did Ayiti, Unsafe Ayiti start? You come here and you say, I'm gonna do something new. I have the means. I have developed the methodology. And now what?
Yes. So no, that is not how we started. So I think I mentioned this quickly, but I have to emphasize it. The beginnings, the seeds of the Unsafe Ayiti movement are over 10, 15 years old, right? Because I do think sometimes it's not coincidence who we meet, whose paths we cross, what ideas are being nourished over time. The problem is sometimes we don't take the time to pause and say, why are these dots connecting? And what does that then lead me to do? And so I don't think it's by accident that I had an incredible Cuban history professor in university who said, Nedgine, I see what you're doing with your research. Dig deeper. Go to declassified materials. Start to ask questions that are uncomfortable, right? And so all of those people in my path then encouraged me to start to say, the team that will come together will be a team that has had uncomfortable conversations and that has done more listening than doing. And so from about 2009 to 2013, we were listening to hundreds of people, Professor Bayyinah. It wasn't about coming in with an idea or a solution or an approach. We really wanted to listen to the freedom fighters and to the people who have been in the trenches in Haiti, surtout en province, especially in the provinces, for many decades. And we spoke with teachers, with parents, with kids, and we even spoke, Professor, with people who are very disgruntled and very cynical that anything could ever change. And we thought their critiques were important because sometimes you can be in an echo chamber of positive reinforcement. Good idea, keep going. Of course, that's great, of course. And you'll get that from family, as you should. That's encouragement and that's love. But the critiques help you realize some of the ways in which we have to start introducing those critiques so that we don't repeat the same errors or believe some of the ways in which lies and unconscious bias might come into our work. I say all of that because it took 3 to 4 years for that listening to allow us then to step back, Professor, and say, what are the trends that we're hearing from people? And let me be clear, the listening didn't have a strict agenda. We didn't have a checklist of questions. We didn't want to come in and say, tell me what quality education looks like, or what would it look like for your child to succeed in education? We came in and said, when we are at our best as a people, what does that look like? And then we listened to stories. Out of those stories came the foundation on which Unsafe Ayiti sits. Out of those stories came people telling us about the power of culture and the power of customs and the power of when community really succeeds, in Gomon and Bukankare and Nyabale. So then we started to look at the education system. And like I said before, none of those points of feedback are happening in classrooms. And so the earliest team members came together and said, we are not going to invest in things, right? We don't want to buy materials. We don't want to build schools. That might be somebody else's work, another group's goal. But what we're realizing from our conversations and our listening is that we want to invest in people. We want to be a human-centered approach where we are co-creating each other's humanity and reigniting each other's humanity in this work. And so then we started to build the first team of 3 to 4. It was a very lean team, Professor. It wasn't the picture you saw on the screen a few moments ago. And then we realized that we wanted to recruit our first group of teacher leaders. And I will forever applaud that first group of 2015 cohort members because they were the pioneers. Many of them are in this picture. They said, we're not sure what this will look like. We're not sure where this will go, but we're hearing your beliefs. We're hearing the work that the team has done so far. We want to be part of that vision. And so they were recruited in 2015, and every year we recruit another group. We now have 215 anciens leaders, teacher leaders. And after the 2-year program, they become alumni ambassadors. And they continue to do the work in their communities to bring about an advocacy and a connection and a network of people who are fighting for quality education for all. So we bring parents together, school directors, teachers, students, to have really difficult conversations about what Guamon could do locally so that Guamon can thrive. Because just like you said in terms of cut and paste, Professor, Guamon's solutions may not look exactly like Miabale's solutions. There might be some things that connect them, but Miabale's context is very different from Guamon, right? Today, everyone in Guamon is eating mangoes. It's gonna be hard to buy that in Miabale. So those mangoes should come into the instruction. But at the end of the day, we started very small, Professor, and what I'm grateful for is that we continue to be a very small team of 12, working with hundreds of people because it's the people who drive this movement forward.
Excellent, excellent. Now, let's not say that too loud. So those people going into campaign don't start picking up this technique.
I should also add another detail, Professor, because I've gotten this question a lot. My entire team, the entire Unsafe Ayiti family is Haitian. And it's interesting because people are surprised by that, which reveals another problem, right? That we need to address head on. The idea that we couldn't build this movement from within, the fact that people are surprised that we didn't have external consultants or people coming in to give us solutions, I think is part of what we want to become as a role model. The idea that the talent exists. Give me any sector, give me any task. We might need to work on it together, but the talent within Haiti already exists. And so I'm just grateful that the hope I had of having an entirely Haitian team came to fruition and we're still pushing forward.
Absolutely. And that's what we want government to copy.
Let's say that louder.
Yes, all the talents are right here. In fact, that makes me think of a young brother I met years ago, maybe 25 years ago. He came back to Haiti with a PhD on international, blah, 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 some big diploma. And he spent 3 years trying to get a job. He couldn't find anything. And ultimately, and he had some family telling him, but Anse Duclair, your family has plenty of land, Anse Duclair. You go Anse Duclair. Anse Duclair, he takes the map, he looks at it, it's not even on the map. Why would somebody want to go to some place that's not even on the map? So anyway, when things got tough enough, he decided to go look at what Anse Duclair looks like. And he went, and he didn't want to come back. He realized that he had 8 acres of paradise that was there. Nobody was minding it. Nothing was happening. And so he cut some trees on the land and made himself a house, made something to stay in. And then made friends with people around, including some of the fishermen and whatnot, and opened up, I can't say a hotel, it's like a place where you can come in with your sleeping bags, but you'll eat shrimps and all kinds of good food, etc. Well, then he went back to where he had studied, sold the house, and came back home. So that's the kind of wealth that is constantly being left about, left to perish, because we have all these prejudices in our heads. about ourselves. You know, Anse Declare. Who wants to go to Anse Declare? It's not even on the map. But it's a marvelous place. And now he's got a pretty good hotel, nice, famous, something, you know. But that's it. When we don't value what we have, whatever it is, the desert has value. You must learn to know what values are in the desert. The river has value, the sea has value, whatever, wherever you are, there is value. Learn to identify it. And that's what school does not teach us to do, because they want us to be in fashion. It doesn't matter that I'm a huge 700-pound woman. I want to wear the same dress the 90-pound girl is wearing. No, it won't give you the same thing. Find the right dress that will fit your body, and you will look great in it. That's
Professor Bayyinah, you remind me of the exercise that we've done. We call it vision contextualisée. So we're trying to say, what can your contextualized vision for your own self, to your point about fitting your own body? So you can't walk into any of our classrooms. So we're in 84 partner schools across the Haiti, Bonite, and Plateau Central. All of our teacher leaders do this vision exercise with our students, where we say, let's think beyond engineer, doctor, what was the third one? Lawyer. Yes, right. Let's think beyond that, because I see you love to draw. You are an incredible artist, right? What can that unlock for you and your family and your community, right? What would it look like for you? Nurses, yes, thank you. Somebody else added nurses to the list of professions we talk about a lot. I just think that so often we also skip over the power of the land. And so we're having really powerful conversations with our students about what would it look like for us to cherish and cultivate the land that made us and will make us great. And that, of course, has to start young, because we've had to have those conversations, Professor Bayyinah, with our 20, 30-year-olds, and they have to unlearn the prejudices, as you said, that once told them that to work means sitting at a desk only. And so that has to be unlearned, and then we got to go to the parents, and then we have to work with our community neighbors, which is why we believe at Unsafe Ayiti that education is not the classroom. You can talk about schooling and instruction, but education is the billboard in the street. Education is the music coming through the radio. Education Absolutely. Are the songs and the dances, and we need to infiltrate all of those. And I use that word very intentionally. We have to go everywhere so that we are relearning and unlearning some of the things that are causing us harm.
Absolutely. And while you're talking about the land, I went back to the charter, the Monday Charter, which was said, wasn't published, it was said, you know, it was oral in 1221 in the Empire of Mali. The number 4 article says, love your land. That everyone should watch out for the land of their fathers, of their mothers, of their ancestors, because every country needs the love of the people that live on it. All land that would see the men, the people who were living on it, to disappear, to go away, that surface, that soil would begin to decline and to desolate. Land, okay? And if we look at some of our older texts in Haiti, we find there is such passionate relationship, passionate feeling about the land itself. But today, so-called modern people don't understand this. You know, I've been so excited during this so-called confinement because I get to walk on my space several times a day. I get to eat, before I would in a season, I might eat a couple of mangoes. Now during this period, I eat mango every day. Not any kind of mango, mango from my land, mango that I gave water to. So it's a totally different kind of relationship. That mango and I, that lemon and I, we have a whole different relationship. And you know who benefit? This girl benefits. Because whatever I give them, I have time to water them. I have time to talk to them. I have time to greet them in the mornings. I don't just say good morning to the people. Say good morning to the people, and then I said to the trees, to the leaves, to the flowers, to the fruits, to the, yeah, everybody gets to. Because in the Arawak tradition, they say to us, we say, or they had said to the European, you say practice makes perfect. How can you claim that? And yet you greet the people and you don't greet the plants. You don't greet the animals, that you're not so good at greeting.
The practice doesn't go too far.
You're not as good as you think on greetings. Okay. So
thank you for sharing that.
We have all this relationship that our ancestors kept with the entire environment, and that's part of power. As you deal with all your environment and all of it is you, and you are all of it, that builds up your abilities, your capacities. And that we tend to forget. And when I'm listening to you talking about Anseye for Haiti, that's what I'm capturing here, that maybe I didn't capture before, but here I am capturing that Anseye for Haiti is doing a very global kind of education and bringing everybody's in as competent partners. Not, let me tell you how to do it, but let us look how to do it best.
Yes, together. And what I love about your example of the mangoes and the relationship building is that it reminds me of the freedom poem, right? This idea that it's a continuation of the struggle. There's never a point at which we're done building relationship, right? Exactly. If you don't water and nurture a relationship, it will die. And so the continuation of the struggle takes time. And I think we live in a modern time where we have to have quick fixes and we have to have quick solutions. And COVID, was confirmed in Haiti, and all of a sudden everyone was saying, in 3 weeks, we'll have a solution. I don't know what that means. And I think we have to be very careful not to fall into the dangerous pattern of thinking relationship can be quick. And so I'll be honest, we have had missteps. We have learned from errors. We have taken a couple of steps forward and then said, pause, maybe that's not the right way to go at Unsafe Ayiti. And so the 5, 6 years, 7 years of having conversations with each other will only make us stronger, but it's never going to be quick.
Absolutely. There are no quick fixes, or at least they don't bring solutions.
Exactly. That's right.
Yes. The other thing that I've experienced here is that generally the mango season ends May 31st. No more mangoes in my yard. I've been eating mangoes till now. This year, don't ask me why, so much more and so much more delicious.
Nice.
So we have to be more attentive to our mother nature. That's where all powers, true powers, that's where they're from. He can feed us. So we looked at the woman. Tell us about the woman. We didn't look at the woman yet. We looked at the professional, we look at the creator, we look at the student. But tell us about the woman, please.
The woman is the woman you see in front of you. I am so blessed to be surrounded by love and family. I mean, it's the pillars for me, right? Is family, faith, and education. Those are the 3 things that bring me life and that keep me whole. I am very grateful for my spouse. His family is from Bomago, for those of you who might be from the north. So that's where the Deroly comes from. I am grateful that, 2 Haitian souls could say, we will do for our country whatever we can. So that's a real blessing for me. I'm grateful, like I said, that my parents instilled seeds that continue to flower in terms of bringing information to counteract ignorance. Rather than running away from difficult conversations, let's go deep and have some real truth telling. So that was instilled by my father, Wetnik, my mother, Ghislaine. And I am the grateful sister of Niclen and Ricardo. So I am the youngest of three. So that is kind of what brings me here. And that's what I would say would be the woman I was participating in.
Fabulous. Fabulous, thank you. But I just received a memo from Luc Nair. And Luc Nair says that you have been promoted Minister of Education in Haiti.
I respectfully decline.
Woo. Sorry, Luc Nair. She declined.
Although I can give you some of our graduates would be perfect for that role, but I personally, I want to stay in community. I want to be in the grassroots and walking shoulder to shoulder, but I appreciate the compliment.
All right, all right. Good. Now, as you know, we work a lot with singing, dancing. Every part of culture is important. I think I can remember the first time you saw us bust into a song in the middle of training program. And at first it was like, you know, and then when we went into the definition, see, and that's exactly what you do in your group, looking for in the culture to recuperate what they have left buried, okay? I would even say to resuscitate that which has been buried and is important for our growth today. Right. There is a song that I love, that I use a lot in my classrooms. What would it be?
You have a few. There's one where you access to listen to the lyrics, and as it's being read, I don't think it's BIC. I forget who sings it. Is it free? No, free. I forget the name of the artist.
Okay. Educate? Are you talking about? Okay, Educate. That's Lataye who sings this song. Okay. Lataye is created by the young brother of Lolo, who's Bookman experienced. So when Danny left them, he went to create, Daddy left them, he went to create Lataye. Okay, and he does make marvelous songs. No, but the song I had in mind is one that you all know. And even though we're not opening all the mics, but everybody can participate. Zambi man mana. Zambi man mana. We wa Kembe ti poulet.
We wa.
Ti poulet sauvé.
We wa.
Arrêtez moi.
We wa.
Madame wa besoin.
We wa.
Pour la faire.
We wa.
Ti bouillon lié.
We wa.
Bouillon poulet.
Oh wow.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
I have no idea what you guys said. Beautiful. Oh my God, wow.
They're asking us to chase after a chicken. And in the end, when we ask, well, what kind of soup she's going to make, and we answered, bouillon caca poule. What does that mean? See, we have to understand the tipoulet that they're talking about in the song is you and I in slavery time. So when one of us run away, that's the chicken. So they say, okay, all of you go catch it. And everything they say to us, we say, yes, king. Oh, yes, indeed. Whatever you say, we were, yes, king, yes, king. We are very obedient all the way to the end. And then when they say, you know what kind of chicken, what kind of soup we're gonna make? We give the answer. Well, today you'll make chicken doo-doo soup. Because we are not catching our brother. We're not catching our sister. That is a lesson in artistry. And most of us who claim to be intellectual listen, hear, sing the song, and don't catch the meaning. These are the type of songs that, you know, when they contradict what they teach us, they say, depuis na Guinée, they tell us that kind of thing. But when you listen to the song, you see that's not true. Even in slavery, we had collaboration, we protected each other whenever we can. We pretended whatever we had to pretend in order to protect each other. So the collaboration, the solidarity was there even in slavery time. So those are the lessons we need to capture and bring back and teach our children. Yeah. In fact, in the non-schools, they changed the last sentence of that song to make them say, when they ask what kind of soup you're gonna make, say we're gonna do gumbo soup. But if you're gonna make gumbo soup, why are we catching the chicken? We don't need gumbo to make, we don't need chicken to make gumbo soup. So it makes no sense. You see, anything that you put at the end that doesn't fit, you will see it very quickly. These are things that, you know, so those are things that they do. They will take our information, deform it, do anything with it, so we cannot draw the strength that is meant for it to feed us. And that's why it's so important, the work of an organization like Anseye Ayiti in our country that takes the culture and awakens our people to some of the vital elements that can build us. So it's about time for us to open up to the whole family of Bayyinah and friends. We do not do this thing where we speak for 2 hours and then we say, oh, there's 5 minutes. We can only take 2 questions. We don't do that number here. We give our audience a chance to really ask their questions. And if still they don't get a chance, they have an email. They can ask the question anyhow, if it's important to them. So, Franz?
All right. I am here. But before you get in trouble with Jerry.
Woo, you are so right.
We must share some contact information and other information for Fondation Felicity.
Thank you very much. Oh, you're a true son. You protect your mom.
I don't want you to get in trouble, Mom.
Thank you.
So I will share. Oh, that's the wrong one. That's freedom. Let me go ahead and share some information for. How come I keep on going to freedom?
There's a need. Build our freedom.
Yes. Okay. Well. Okay. Oh, here we go. All right.
Okay, so we are here at Fondation Marie-Claireuse Félicité Bonheur des Salines, better known as Fondation Félicité. You can contact us on, let me tell you the truth, the Twitter thing, I have never even gone into it. So don't send messages there, even though it exists. Okay, Fondation Félicité Instagram, yes. Official Bayyinah Bello channel, we're still working at it. The 509-2940-0869. We have all our lovely volunteers who are always there to respond to that phone. These are some hardworking young people who really are dedicated. Must take the time to say that. Without them, there'd be no Fondation Félicité. And the ones that are here now, we used to have 10 to 20 of them on a regular basis, but we have 3 soldiers that says confinement, no confinement, whatever it is, They dress up, put on masks, put on gloves, put on whatever they have to put on, but they come. We also have our website, www.fondationfelicite.com. And we have those who want to, if your heart tells you you want to donate, pour fondationfelicite@gmail.com. And let me take the time also to say thank you for all those who have this week and all the other weeks contributed. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. All right, everybody. So you know how this part goes. This is the question and answer session for everyone who would like to ask a question of our guest, Nedgine. Please raise your hand. There's a raise hand button on your computer or on your phone, and I'll be able to choose you so that you can ask a question of our esteemed guest. So we have a couple of hands raised so far. So we'll go to our first question that comes from Royal Sparkles.
Hi, Royals.
One, mommy, one, Nadine. Merci, you look gorgeous as usual.
So do you.
I was thinking when you were talking about the mangoes, and I just want to say thank you to Nadine. I absolutely love your spirit. You are so beautiful inside and out. And I just wanted to share something when you were mentioning the mangoes. It was funny because this morning I woke up to go pick the blueberries from my yard, and I realized that the birds got to them before I did. And I called my mother, and I was so frantic, and I said, Mommy, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do? They're taking all my stuff. And she said, very annoyed, it doesn't belong to you. The trees weren't put here for you. You have to share with the animals. That is just not your food. And I had to think about it. And so to hear you saying that that is part of our Arawak heritage, I realized that twice today. So thank you. One, one, one.
Respect, and you're very welcome. And that's true. Me too. The mangoes, sometimes they eat them before I get to them.
All right, very good. So no question, Alicia, that's it? You just want to make that comment?
Yes, no questions. I'm just enjoying today, just enjoying everything.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
All dressed in her pink, being her Freda self.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Okay, so we'll go to our next question. Comes from our brother Mario. Mario, go ahead and unmute yourself to ask a question, please.
All right. Anyway, honor to everybody. Honor, Mama Bello. Honor.
Respect.
Honor, Sir Nedgine. Really wonderful to hear you. Thank you. I was trying to formulate my question, really, to be honest, because I just wanted to connect with you, just to do that. But before any question, what wonderful work you're doing. What wonderful ancestral spirit is driving you to do this work. And so, and interesting, the doors are opening before you. I mean, people that you mentioned, entities that I don't personally, first of all, think of as allies, and here they are, just asking you, what do you want? And they're giving it to you. That's fantastic. I would like to connect with you on the project that I have begun and that Mama Bello is aware of, because she actually was my first port of call when I decided I'm coming to my country to open a university system, a multi-campus affair, starting with one building that that our mother left us and that had to be destroyed now and rebuilt, to make that as a teachers' college, and then thinking of multiple campuses throughout the country. Now I'm back here in England, just trying to find my head again, to be honest. But I would like to connect with you and to work that you're doing, because from the start, I know that the project that I began wasn't standing alone. It was to make connection with my with my family in Haiti, but also internationally as well, throughout Greater Africa, throughout the Caribbean, the continent. So I would like basically to say, I'm so just lifted up by the work that you're doing, and that I would like for us to be in touch, because I'd like, exchange of information, counsel, etc. Yeah, basically it.
Thank you so much, Mario.
Question, comment, pleasure.
I appreciate that so much, and thank you. I share your support and your words of encouragement with our entire team and the Unsafe Ayiti family. I am one, but I stand as 10,000, right? We are together in this. So you're just seeing one face today, but I represent many. Frans, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a way. Maybe will you share my email address, or if it's easier to put it in the chat?
I'll put mine in the chat, no problem. Okay. If you can get it, yeah. Right.
Excellent. Okay. And what I wanted to share with you, and I appreciate you hearing this in the work that we do at Unsafe Ayiti, Mario, is that I may not have shared this. We specifically are trying to work on the base of the house, the foundation. We realize that sometimes people skip the steps and then wonder why kids, when they're older, are not maybe jumping at the chance to go to a campus like the one that you're envisioning and the one that you're dreaming and putting together. And so Unsafe Ayiti has decided to devote our first phase to the foundation, which is préscolaire all the way to sixième année fondamentale. So we're in the primary levels. But what is so beautiful about the ways that Professor Bayyinah encouraged me to share with you, the techniques are universal, right? You can use them in working with parents. You can use them in working with school directors. And some of our graduates are now working as doyen in the university level.
There you go.
So I'm very honored to connect with you and learn some more.
Yeah, thank you. I'll do it now. Thank you, Frans.
Yes, thank you, Brother Mario. Okay, next question comes from Rose Murta. Rose, you go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Hello.
Hi, Rose.
Hi. Oh my God, I'm so happy to talk to everybody. Hello, Bayyinah. Hello.
Hi, how are you? Nice to see you.
Hi.
Rose.
Nice to see you. How are you doing?
Doing fine, and you?
I'm doing very good. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, Nadine. I hope I pronounced your name right.
Nedgine?
Nedgine, yes, it was me. Hello.
Nedgine. Okay, hey, I'm so happy to be here. Yeah, my question is actually, there's a lot of wisdom in our sacred spiritual system of voodoo, and I was really wondering if there is any space for that in your education program, or how do you deal with spirituality at all, or is maybe not something you want to deal with and you just like to let everybody free? Just that was my question. And hello, thank you for answering my question and doing the work you do. A lot of love. Bye.
Thank you. Lots of love to you.
Thank you, Usmilta. I really appreciate that question. We've received it before. What I think is really powerful is that we cannot ignore the religious foundations and the religious teachings, and to your point, the power that comes from our religious backgrounds. And so what is great is that our members of our family come from all different spiritual practices. And we invite that into the space. We cannot just approach it with having one represented and the other not represented. But of course, in the fundamental level in Haiti, there's not a subject, right, that's going to be about religion. And so then we're introducing the curricular pieces into the way that they teach and learn. But what I appreciate is that because we're saying we're open to all, we have very important debates about how spiritual rituals and spiritual traditions must be part of the work you do in front of students, because they also bring their background to what they're doing in the classroom. And so we've tried to have a more universal approach. We haven't chosen one or prioritized the other, but we do have real conversations. For example, the exercise I mentioned before, where kids are choosing their vision. There are some who come and say, I want to be a priestess, right? There are some who come, I want to be a mambo. Like that is part of the conversation. And we're not saying we can have that conversation here. We must invite it into the space, because it is part of the humanity that our people must bring into all the spaces so that we can be our authentic selves. And so our conversation is about plurality. primarily.
All right, fantastic. That's good to know. All right, thank you for your question, Rose. Next question is from Francine. Francine, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Okay. Yes, my question is, so you're talking about
Your connection is a little choppy, Francine.
The society in Haiti. Is that, oh, sorry. So you're speaking of re-education, but how does that apply to someone like myself, who's an adult who grew up in these terrible educational systems, who's in the process of re-educating themselves? And however I was able to find this group, I discovered without a DNA test that my great-grandparents were Haitians. They spoke the Creole language. They were from New Orleans. And we unfortunately lost my grandmother's picture book during a dispute over some inheritance. And I'm also observing in my, like on my mother's side of the family, she has property in Texas, and the uncle, and I've heard this before, when people don't have a connection to the land, it could lead to insanity and all kinds of aberrations. I noticed that we had an ancestor who had an Austrian name who was the emancipated slave. He couldn't read or write, but my family members tell me that he was an excellent businessman. That he acquired 900 acres, which was, you know, how does a slave do that coming out of slavery? But his philosophy was that he wanted his family to be together, to be self-sufficient, not to have to depend on white people. And I can understand part of that. My mother said that they had to go into town together as a group, and in Texas, you had to also be proficient with weaponry. You had to be known as a good shot so people wouldn't bother you. And they had to, you know, go together. They went together to their churches together. They kind of like, in the countryside, they had no cars. They went by wagon and horse. They traveled together for their safety. So I noticed when he convinced my mother to sell part of the grandparents' land on her father's side of the family, that shortly after that he developed Alzheimer's. Remarkably, he developed, and nobody in the family has Alzheimer's, by the way. This is not part of our, you know, DNA history. So this unusual thing took place, and it was very sudden. It just came on very suddenly. So now this other land we have in Texas, that's on my mother's property's land. Part of it accidentally got sold by a brother to a family member who sold it to the white people next door, and they have befelled a virgin forest on that land, even though my mother owns the majority of it. And I can see this behavior of my mother. Every now and then she wants to chop a tree down. It's really like weird stuff, you know, but it's her anger over the property. And I am, you know, now it's fallen on me of like what to do about this land, you know, and I'm trying to educate myself about, re-educate myself. So what do you have, you know, in mind for adults? Because we are all part of one tree, you could say. And I felt the chopping of those trees, by the way, without even knowing what was happening. I'd look at an oak tree and I'd feel sorrow until I later found out from my mother this was going on. And then I was like, wow, we really are connected to the land.
Thank you for your question, Francine, and for sharing that story with us and bringing your story to us. One way, to be very clear, I think Unsafe Ayiti, we're trying not to repeat some missteps that we've seen other institutions make where they try to embrace everything and do everything. We know what our niche is, and we want to contribute something of value and something of quality and something of excellence. And so while we do have a coalition of peers, Francine, that work on adult education, the piece that for us is related to what you're asking is the program we do for our teacher leaders. So our teacher leaders are adults. I wanted to be clear that we don't just walk into classrooms and work with the kids. Our medium, our gateway, I should say, to students is the work that we do every day with these 215 teacher leaders who are adults. And as I mentioned before, Francine, have grown up in a system that has taught them the myths and the lies and some of the stereotypes that we now unconsciously accept. And so I'm happy to connect with you and share a bit about how they have gone through the journey of healing from those wounds and then accepting the call to action to then teach another generation differently. And then beyond that, after our 2-year program, becoming active in their community as what I call civic leaders. So when I was mentioning before infiltrating media and doing the economic work differently and doing business work differently, it's because our graduates can use the skill sets of teaching to say, I'm now going to become a journalist for educational justice. I think it's a travesty that our media doesn't talk about the crisis going on in our education system. So based on the experience I had at Unsafe Haiti, I want to activate journalists differently. Or others might say, I am a musician. We should be singing about what's happening around us in classrooms. And so I will use my Unsafe Haiti training to inform my peers and reach out to those like you, Francine, who are itching for more information. So I share that with you because we're very happy to share with you what we do with our teacher leaders, but it's not something like I could share some documents and you would have your self-education. But I'm also happy to recommend some partners of ours who do work with people who are interested in doing their own unlearning and their own re-education, but that's not the work that Unsafe Haiti does right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that I'm noticing the ancestors are sending me young women through my therapy practice that are looking for guidance. They are actually mentors to other young women. These are young adult women who are mentors to other young adult women. And so I could barely learn something before in time to just in time to pass it along to them. It's just, there's this urgency, this paradigm shift that has taken place. And I really want to do my best with the time I have left. I'm not dying, but you understand but I do want to do my best by these women and the children that they are holding.
Thank you so much for that. And it reminds me of how we believe that we have a multiplier effect. You train a leader. Thank you, Mario, for your comment. And then that has the way transformed. There has a possibility of being transformed. So thank you.
Could she repeat that, Fran? Something happened to the volume. Yeah.
I was just saying, you remind me of this idea of the multiplier effect, this idea of the ripple effect that happens with leaders who sincerely, to use Professor Bayyinah's term, not just say I'm a leader, but sincerely engage and commit themselves to the work of leadership, how they then have a ripple effect and a multiplying impact on those who come in touch with them. And so I appreciate that you're thinking of mentorship in that same way.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Perfect, thank you, Francine, for your question. All right, so next, questions are adding up. Okay, let's see, we have Dr. Ya. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask a question, please.
Hello, family, One.
Yes, sir.
Nedgine, thank you for this great presentation. Thank you, my Bello. I wanted to kind of share, let me ask a question. I came a little late, so I didn't get all the story, but I am right now on your side. Anseye pour Ayiti. And I have a grassroots organization where during this quarantine in March or April, organization, the grassroots organization, is Mbamon in Jacmel. They're about 45 minutes away from the town, from the city, from the center of the city. And they had not been going to school since October. So the young adult there, between 18 and 25, asked me to get them some chickens because they wanted to do a chicken coop. And I challenged them because I know they know how to write and read. I know they've been walking 2 hours to get to school to become young counselor, young professors to young kids. So they started a camp. I cannot see you, Nedgine. So they started a camp. And I had contacted my Bello to say, well, what should the curriculum be? Because, you know, they're not really teachers. So so they've been doing this for a month now, going on 2 months. So I wanted to know, do you take any application from that section, from the Southeast, from Jacmel? Would you consider training one of these young adults as a professor?
Thank you, Doctor, for sharing that question. So I'll answer it in 2 parts. The first part is we do have our graduates who were with us in the Altibonite and have since returned home. One's in Okap, one's in Okai, one's in Jacmel. Because again, we don't believe in us coming. We believe that the work can be done from within the community by those who live in Jacmel, the area that you described. I'm not sure what the commune name is. But the other idea is maybe asking them, are they looking for a specifically academic approach? Or are you looking for a camp that complements what's happening in schools? Because what we do might be helpful, but I'm always interested in asking young people who know what they desire in society and what they want in their community to flourish, what would be of use to you? Because it's not always the curriculum that the Ministry of Education asks us to use. Does that make sense? And so I'd be curious maybe what they'd be interested in.
Me too. We are, this is very radical, it's very revolutionary. It's coming from the basis. I just challenged them. They asked me for something. So as a barter, I said, I need you guys to do this. So I had 8 of them. And they started with 10 kids, 5 to 12. Now we're up to 40 kids in the second season. But I know they're not professors, but I know that they all been to school. Understood. I've seen them, they wrote me a letter asking me for help and I said, you guys can teach. And we're trying to figure it out. But I'm all the way in New York, and this came out of being quarantined. And it just came out of them and the kids not doing anything. So I was able to do a fundraiser to get them some books, some pens, and one of the things that my Bello challenged me is to tell them to use their environment. Okay? She said, you know, look at the leaf, look at the plant, look at what time the moon goes down, look at the chicken, you know? So yes, we're using that. So it would be great to offer them even more of a groundingness.
Tools. Yeah, and
because
skills, absolutely.
Like you said, I see civic leaders in there. I see journalists. I have a young man, he sent me videos, beautiful, and I see singing. So if we have someone that can sit with them, it's about 93 family, about 300 people. I think they will listen.
I would love for them to join our cohort. So we believe in community as a unit of change. We don't believe in this idea of come to Go Naive, but nothing that we're doing in Go Naive relates to what your community needs. And so we have said we want to invest deeply. For example, the word that scale that gets thrown around a lot in social change circles, we want to go scale. Chosen 5 communes, Gonaïve, in the Altibonite, nearby Les Boucancare-Esch in Plateau Central, where we do all of our work. But we're very happy to invite them in if they're willing to commit to being in community with us during the duration of our program. So what I could invite you to do, because every year we recruit a new group, a new cohort. It's every January, the applications are available. So I'd be happy to share information in the chat of how they could apply to be part of that program.
Or is that also online on your?
It is. Yep, it is.
How about
it's
the
available on the website
that you talk about?
I'm sorry?
You mentioned someone that is in Jacmel.
One of our graduates finished the work that she did in Guatemala. There's another one that was in Mirebalais and is now back home in Jacmel. I can put you in touch with her as well.
That would be great, because I don't know the distance between those areas you're talking about and them.
It's far, but I think this is part of what I think our conversation, myself with Professor Bayyinah, was resurfacing for me. It's a long-term investment, right? There's no, 2-month program. There's no crash course in building skills as a teacher. And so if they're willing to be with us over an extended period of time, I'd be happy to share more information.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Ya. And let's see, next, you have a lot of questions coming. So let me get through them quickly.
That's the bracelet you gave me.
Where's my bracelet, Dr. Ya?
Uh-huh.
All right, next question is from Nadej. Nadej, you could go ahead and unmute yourself, ask your question, please.
Greetings, everyone. Hi. I was actually supposed to log off 40 minutes ago, but I just felt so compelled by the conversation. I'm late for another meeting, but I'm going to go ahead and ask my question. My name is Nadej. I actually did some research last year in 2019 at UEH, at the Faculty de Ethnologie, and I was studying the professors there to see what were their motivations for teaching at Haiti, for teaching in a country where there are a lot of they have a lot of work-related challenges that make it, hard for them to complete their jobs, and they have to assist the students, and that's how I met my Bello. And I just wanted to know, in terms of home, in the work that you do, what is the value of home in terms of the civicness? Because in my research, I found that a lot of these professors are civically engaged. They're not doing it for the paycheck. They're doing it for the love of home, for the love of Ayiti. So I wanted to know, in terms of your mission, in terms of the civicness, like I say, Lakai, but what is the value of home in your mission?
Thank you so much, Nadej. And you mean in the mission of Unsafe Haiti, or for me personally, or both?
Both.
Okay.
And I would love to connect with you, but I'm probably gonna have to log off right after this, but please.
Yeah, and I would love to have that conversation with you, because I think I said that word maybe 17 times when I was introducing myself, this idea of coming home and being connected to home. For me, home connects you to purpose, and it connects you to the roots that others have helped cultivate even before you were born. I think I am part of a lineage of freedom fighters. I am part of a lineage of people who believe that education is the revolution. And so I just feel like I am walking shoulder to shoulder with others who've been doing this work well before me and will continue well after me. So that's what home means to me, connecting with the Moistic Stoves, connecting with the other people who have tried to help us and open our eyes to truth. And so that's the same thing that we bring to Unsafe Haiti, Nadej. We don't think you should be disconnected from home. So the example of the woman from Jacmel is rare, because over 80% of our groups every year come from within the communities where we work, because we think that that sense of urgency and that sense of responsibility and obligation comes most closely when you're connected to where you come from. And I should say connected to where you come from in a hyper-local way. I can't just say Haiti is mine, right? I mean, that's a pretty vague statement, but Pesh, right? Which is where my father's side of the family is from, and the Slogan area, which is where my mother's side of the family is from, like that for me is ancestral hand.
Thank you so much. We'll connect. I'll be in touch. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Take care.
All right, bye, Nadej. And also, this session is being recorded, so I'll be able to share this recording with everyone after it's over. All right, so next question comes from Valerie. Valerie Ingrid, you could go ahead and unmute yourself and ask a question, please.
Oh, excuse me. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you sound great.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, Franz, for giving me the opportunity to ask my question. And I call you Mama, Mommy Bayyinah, to be honest. And to be frank, I'm a little nervous because I am a late learner, as I call myself, me and my sisters. We come from a family of I'm learning greatness. My mother and father are from Port-au-Prince, and me and my sisters would always talk and say, we're not your typical Haitians, if you will, because the way we were brought up was not the typical, you go to church and everything like that. So it's, excuse me for my lack of finding the words to use, and excuse my French, but the way we grew up, I used to consider it. I'm like, are we like trash, like black trash, or what is it, Dad? So to be honest with you, we had a weird conditioning from our parents, because I grew up always so intrigued about where my family was from, and I was always asking my mother and my father questions, and oh, how was it being in Haiti? And then they would give me vague answers. And so as I got older, and I'm 37, and I say late learner because I had to learn myself where they came from and what greatness they came from. And it kind of saddened me because they never speak about their history. In fact, to be honest with you, my father came here in the 60s. So he was already conditioned with tout le monde blanc, oui. So I always thought, if them being here in the 60s, okay, they wanted a life or whatever here in the Americas. And one thing that distanced my dad with his other siblings is that even though we were here, we grew up in Waltham, Massachusetts, my dad always played Haitian music, always, every single day after work at 4 o'clock. Weekends, it was like at 6 in the morning, boom, boom, everything, tout bagay, tout bagay in the big stereo. And so we would go downstairs and then we would start dancing, and then he would see us and he'd be like, yeah, da, da, da. So I grew up loving the music, and then it brought me to, as an adult woman, to bring my own creativity of art and music and dance. And so today, I was telling my mom and dad, I was like, you guys are great, so stop telling me you don't know what your grandfather's name is, or you don't care anymore, and all this stuff. You know what, I'm gonna find out, and then this is gonna happen, because I'm sick of the conditioning from the education, from what we had to learn, never really sat well with me. And to be honest with you, I was never the sister out of all 4 girls, the studious one. I was never, like, I guess because of my parents' situation and the I don't want to say truth of the matter of everybody, but I'm going to just say whatever. They didn't really focus the education on us, so we had to learn the hard way what education was. And then I'm proud to say that finally, even though at 37, I graduated college and, and all this stuff, but I didn't feel complete, to be honest. My sisters, the 2 older ones, they graduated college. The older one, BU graduate. The other one, she's getting her bachelor's. And then the younger one, she's still finding her way. So when I felt that when I graduated, I'm like, yeah, so what? What is this? Oh, great. So essentially, growing up, and I'm so sorry I'm taking so much time blabbering. And let me get to my question to make this quick, excuse me. I actually wrote this down on the 12th because I was always so nervous to talk to you because I felt like I wasn't worthy enough. But, I'm so glad that the ancestors gave me strength to finally take the strength and raise the hand so I could ask these questions, because I watched the video with you and Edwidge Dunticat, and then that also helped me a lot to answer part of my first question, which was essentially how to get out of the rut that we're in. Even though, I had friends at the time that were highly educated, but there were other things and like past traumas, if you will, that always got them back into the rut. And excuse me, I don't know what other word to use, like rut, but stuck in your trauma, if you will, giving yourself excuses. Well, I can't do this because, look at how we grew up. So I should just go back to a bottle or whatever, So essentially, when I saw that video with you and Edwidge, I wrote down and am going to learn that I would need from what you spoke of, you need your freedom, purpose, and direction for me to find myself, because one day it will awaken where I no longer have to go back to my rut. So that was one of the questions, if you will, for people that are still in our ruts and stuff. And the other question, and excuse me for being so bold in this one, and please forgive me, you had another video with yourself and Mr. Yusef Makondo, excuse me, and he was speaking great things, and I give him so much respect for what he does and his knowledge. And he also brought up the situations with Farrakhan and Voodoo. My question is to this, because also I was conditioned of being Catholic, going to do communion and all that junk. And then I realized this is not something in me, was still trying to reach out, and then I couldn't find it. And when I was honored that my ancestors reached out to me to find you in France and to know about Voodoo, because it was through you that I got the book of The Divine Horseman by Maya Deren, and I'm almost done reading the book. The question for this is, how do we know what's personal gain in Voodoo, and to ensure that our Voodoo way of life is not exploited to others that want to know, but using it for the wrong intentions? Because truthfully, for me, I thought I was using personal gain for Voodoo, so I want myself, my family to get out of the rut. And then I said, oh no, I'm not gonna tap into the ancestors and bother them for stuff that we did. However, when he was speaking about that, it made me think of something, and I could speak to you about that in a later thing. But that question came to mind: how do I know what's personal gain and not, and ensuring that it's not exploited? And excuse me for the blabbering, and thank you again for the opportunity. You're absolutely gorgeous. I call you mommy in France, my brother. I'm honored for your content and your books. I got the books for my nephews. And I got actually the first Ayiti Revolution and the Shiros I gave to my nephews. And they're so young. And they're like looking at me like, what? You're doing? I'm like, yes, it's not a religion, it's the way of our life. And I'm a little bold in the family. I'm quick to curse them out. But that was the stuff. And thank you again. And the Voodoo, it's really an honor to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the honesty. Thank you for the courage.
Thank you.
I guess you want me to handle that. All right. Number one, I'm very proud of you that you've taken the book, you've read the book, you're doing the work. That's very good. That's very important. Everything is in you. Even though I recommend a book is just something to help you remember things that are sleeping in you. So it's not the law. It's not what's gonna make things happen. The book just reminds you, okay? You asked the question, how do you protect yourself from people who may want to use Voodoo too? But people use everything. You go to school and they use the education to whatever. You go to the doctor, if the doctor has vitamin B and you need vitamin D, he will sell you the vitamin D because that's what he has to sell. So that's why it's so important to be free. When you're dealing from your freedom, from within yourself, then your flags will go up. If you come to see Mommy Bayyinah and she's telling you something that's not in our best interest, something in you will say, Mommy, but I heard you say so-and-so and so, another time, and I read, or I had Sister Nedgine said, or friends has said. You see, you will question, you will challenge, and you will get to the truth. Once you have your freedom at work. If you're not, it makes no difference where you go. The priest, the pastor, the imam, the school, the tribunal, I don't care where you go. You will be eaten. Because we are in a society that is programmed, designed to eat others. So the only self-defense you can build is your own trust in yourself and your ability to develop your freedom to make it. That's your pole. That's your ça nous dit dans Vodou nous dit
Potomito?
Potomitan. Oh, bravo. Yes. Your freedom is your potomitan. That's what everything, all the forces of the universe stands right there within you. Okay? If we were Hindus, we would say that's your kundalini. That's where all the forces travel to come to you. It doesn't matter what religion you go to or what system of belief. If you are not yourself, you will be eaten. You will be food for others. So don't worry about the ones that may want to take advantage of you. Worry about building your inner strength. And then even you can even work with the ones who want to take advantage of you. No big deal. Okay? We are doing a business, and then you're handling a certain part of the business, and you're taking 90% of what we are earning. You're giving me 5%, you're giving me 3%. Even when I see it, I could still say, well, all right, I'm going to do it for this reason. I'm going to let him have it until this date. And then when the date comes, I said, you know what? If we're going to continue, it's not going to be that way. Things are going to be different. You see, you're going to speak up because from the point of your own freedom, your potomitan is well ignited, less and less people will be able to take advantage of you without you knowing. You coming surprised, oh, I thought this was a good friend, but look at what she did to me. It's because your freedom was not lit, your light. Freedom is a light. It was not lit. That's why other people could do all these things without you even seeing it. But that's the great thing. When you can see it and you say, well, that's okay. I allow it. I'm going to let him do this while, let her do that. But you're learning from the experience and you're preparing so that the next person you're in front of, you know how to handle it. Build your freedom, build your inner strength, and you will grow. You could go anywhere. You could go to the church. I have plenty of friends that are priests. I have plenty of friends that are pastors, but they have no effect on me. Their stories cannot affect me. We can have nice, intelligent exchanges, but they know they can't play no game with me. Okay? That's what you want. You don't want to be enemies with people all over the world. No, you want to be everybody. You want to get along with everyone, but you want to have your strength and you want to have your dignity, and that comes from your freedom. All right.
Thank you so much. I really, truly appreciate it. And
Thank
you to Nedgine for your information. And then I look forward to educating myself more and everything I look forward to doing in the name of our ancestors and, the true divine that, brought me to you. So I'm really honored. Thank you.
We are honored. Take good care and continue to grow. And my email is on there. We can keep in touch.
Thank you so much. That means so much.
You're very welcome.
Thanks.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much, Valerie, for your contribution to today's show. And let's see, we have 3 more questions and 5 more minutes to go. So we're going into the lightning round of questions. So next question comes from Karine. Karine, you could go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Franz, I would like to say thank you for moderating these purposeful discussions that we've been having for a couple of weeks now since I've been joining in. Professor Bello, I would like to say again, thank you for the knowledge, enriching us and teaching us about our history. Thank you so much. Nedgine, it's so nice to see you again after meeting at our last conference. I wanted to commend Nedgine on the work that she's doing because I had the opportunity to work last summer with one of her teacher leaders in Chateau Ayiti, where we run a summer camp. And wow, to see it firsthand, it's amazing, the work. And yes, our people have it in them. I am so hopeful, grateful, and I dream for the day to be able to go back to Chateau Ayiti and continue in the work that you are all doing. Thank you so much, all of you.
Thank you, Karine. I will share that with Lamal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karine. Thank you very much. Okay, next question is from Luke Nair. Brother Luke Nair, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask a question, please.
Okay, greeting everybody. So that's a great show, and then as usual, very good to be with you. So I will be very quick and very short. So Nadine, that's very inspiring, your organization, what you build. Unfortunately, I missed some part of the show. I will listen it again when friends will send it, everything. But two short aspects. What make you a successful organization, if you have to summarize it? And then you mentioned as well the challenges that you have in Haiti. And then I would like to see maybe if you can share one of the biggest and then how you overcome it. And a third part, it's maybe a little bit provocative. It's not on the subject. I hear about your organization 1 year ago, and then I dig a little bit on it, and I see you were collaborating with Bello. I say, oh, that should be a great organization. I didn't know you. I discovered you today, and start to make some Google search on you yesterday. I see that you're collaborating as well with Barack Obama Foundation. Just would like to see what is your opinion as a first Black president in the United States, why he never come to Haiti, which was the first Black country. Just if you have an idea about that, and then maybe I would encourage you if you can bring into what you are doing in Haiti. That will be very good. Okay, just a provocative part of this. Okay, thank you again.
Thank you, Luke. Now, sure, I'll try to be quick because we can have a thesis conversation about all three of your questions. But to summarize, I think there's two aspects that I believe have set us in motion to be a strong movement. One is the principle of slow and steady. This idea that we don't need to be rushing to do it all quickly and prove ourselves. We're doing this for our own humanity and for our own sense of freedom, going back to the poem that opened our conversation. So this sense of self is something that we try to anchor in all that we do. We're not running after dollars. We're not running after acclaim or recognition. And then the second piece of this is leveraging the assets that lie and exist. I appreciate people who think, let's use our imagination and create something new. I think we have the privilege as Haitian brothers and sisters to unlock what already exists. Yes, we can use our imagination, but there's power that has yet to be fully leveraged. And I think the fact that we lean on that a lot now is part of our success. In terms of the challenge, I'll name one. There's many. One is the deep-seated cynicism among ourselves as a people. It confronts me, it slaps me, it wakes me up a lot. This idea that we don't even believe in ourselves sometimes, and trying to figure out why. And then to your provocation, I was part of the fellowship program that isn't connected to his administration, but of course it has his name and his wife's name. To answer your question about his visit to Haiti, I don't think that then proves he cares about Haiti. I don't think visiting a country, even if you're the first Black president of a country and we are the first Black republic of the world, necessarily connects. And so I would rather hopefully use a little bit of my role in the fellowship and my peers' roles by educating, because he could come and that not change anything. So I'd rather educate rather than visit.
I'd like to connect with you. Yeah,
sure.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for your question. All right, last question of this session comes from Lawrence. Lawrence, go ahead and unmute, ask a question, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, good evening. My name is Gilbert Pierre. I'm not Laurence, that's my wife.
Oh, okay.
And I just want to shout out to Karine and also Tipik and commend Nedgine and everyone on the panel. I have a very specific question regarding education. And based on our experience with Joy and Chateau in the mountains of Lekai, I would like to have some insight on the actual disconnect or the barriers between the concept of educating the basic principles such as distance that we are encountering, for example, with the young kids. Meaning, I myself am guilty of that as of right now still. When we're saying, when trying to estimate a distance, we don't have the notion of kilometers or miles and so on and so forth. And I can recall from background, as far as I know, li pi devant boti pied bois, which means nothing to us. And when we talk about distances here in Haiti, so I would love to understand what are the insights have you been able to tackle in communicating concepts to the kids, in communicating not only in French or in Creole, the basic understanding of some principles such as distance.
Thank you so much for that question. And one of the things that I would share is make it relevant. Make it relevant. I think there's so many principles that have not been well taught because it hasn't been relevant to their everyday reality. So when I step outside of that classroom, what is distance serving me? How do I really make it practical to my worldview? And how does it serve a purpose, right? Again, going back to that freedom poem, what is the purpose? Education is a launch pad, right? If we wanted to replace education with freedom from that poem, how is the learning relevant and the principle, how does it become real? Because it's relevant to my everyday reality. One of the things that we have learned from math, social studies, science, all of the different subjects, is that if it's not relevant to everyday reality and brings in the joys, ups and downs, and challenges of everyday life, they're not going to learn it in a way that is real. So that's what I would share as one of the core principles. So whether you're bringing in fruits to talk about reproduction, whether you're bringing in leaves to talk about biology, if you're talking about the environment, why not go by the side of the lake that's only a few yards away from the classroom? There's so much that we just keep so intangible and not local to Haiti's context. That's where I think we sometimes fail in education. The other thing that I would add in terms of the key principles is that sometimes we're just trying to regurgitate information. But did the teacher go through the process of making it real for themselves even before we try to feed it to students?
Yes, indeed.
That is a huge disconnect. And I think that's why it takes time. We can't just say, here's some skills, teach the kids. That we have to be re-educated as adults.
Fantastic. Thank you again for this insight. And I would also love to add that Lamar exemplified pretty much the base understanding of a strong background, and kudos to you. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
To what Nedgine just said, I would add, when we had, years ago, we had a primary school in Ayiti, in Port-au-Prince, in Delma. And the first thing we teach the children is, in part of the curriculum for 3-year-olds was you must learn how to make the rain fall. And parents were like, you doing voodoo with the children? I said, yes, we do. Every child has to know how to make the rain fall. And it's, we had a big stove, gros chaudière, gros bail du feu dans la cour, gros chaudière, plein de l'eau, gros couverture, chaudière maman pain bas. We boil the water, we take a stick, raise the lid, and then here's the rain. How does rain fall? The waters of the earth gets heated by the sun. Since we didn't have control over the sun, today we would use solar to make it. We would make it differently, right? We set with the fire under the water. And when the water boils, burns enough, when you raise, then the steam goes up to the coal, to the thing, and it comes back. The water comes back to the earth. That's what rain is all about. Even children I met 30, 40 years later, they'll say, oh, Miss Bello, I still know how to make the rain fall. Stuck with them because they know. See? And that's what Nedgine was explaining. Make it real, bring it to the reality. Don't have us sing or recite Therefore, we are now in the spring in Haiti, where the winter is coming. Where? There is no such thing. We have to be for real. Yeah, we're into mango season, yes. And right now we're stepping into canap season. That's what's going on. We're gonna see canap all over the place. That makes sense. But the spring and the summer and the fall and the winter, that has no relativity and we can't understand any of it. So whenever we want to teach something, we have to make it real. If it's real enough, it sticks, it's learned forever. And the other thing, in Africa, they would say, a good teacher teaches for eternity. A good teacher teaches for eternity. So if you're learning something that's only good, that's why I hate these things. After 6 months, they tell you it's no good, you need another one. It's useless. No. Good teacher teaches for you now. When you give yourself the pain, you invest the effort to learn, that learning should take you a long way. It should not be for 6 months, for 2 years, for 3 years.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Now I know how rain falls.
You have to tell us next time, I know how to make the rain fall.
I know how to make the rain fall, exactly. That's a great lesson. All right, great. So we're approaching the end of our program this afternoon. So before we end, I would like to just share some information. Oh, well, there's Freedom again. Freedom keeps on popping up.
It's telling us a lesson. We need to work at it. It looks like some of you are not working hard on your freedom.
Yes, indeed. They keep reminding you. So, all right. So I just want to share some information. If for those who want to stay in contact with Nedgine's organization, Anseye for Ayiti, that's the email address, the Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, all different ways that you could follow this great effort that our sister Nedgine has put forward that's helping so many people. I'm very inspired by all the work that Nedgine is doing and with Anseye for Ayiti, and I know everyone there is as well. So please be sure to stay in contact, follow them on Facebook, follow them on Instagram, and Twitter. We all know that my Bello does not go on Twitter, so it's okay. You can still
One day I will. One day I will. Not yet.
Oh, watch out when she does, because when she does, she'll be on it every day. And then, so yeah, so follow all of these different ways that you could keep in contact with this great organization. And of course, all the information to keep in contact with Fondation Felicity. You have that information here as well. And of course, Thoroughbred Books. You know, we have 4 books right now, working on some more. Sheroes of the Haitian Revolution, written by Professor Bayyinah Bello, and the other one's written by this guy, Franz. And I believe that is all that we would like to share this afternoon. So as always, thank you so much, Nedgine. We appreciate the presence here today. All the information that you shared was amazing. Continue to be blessed, and Unsafe Ayiti. We wish the sky is the limit. You know, you're doing such great work. I'm very proud of the work that you're doing, and I'll be sure to share that with everyone that I know. So thank you so much. And then I would leave the last word to the Professor Bayyinah Bello.
Thank you, Franz. Thank you very much. Nedgine, it was great.
Thank you.
I mean, I know we've worked together. I've seen your work. I've seen you in different places, both at your source and here at the Fondation. You've come a number of times with your groups. So it really is a pleasure. I'm very, very glad that you were with us today. Thank you very much. And it's always a pleasure to see a young woman, young Asian woman, young Black woman taking life, prend le taureau par les cornes and go. That's fabulous. We always enjoy that.
An honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. And that's what we want for all of those who are watching today. I am certain that one by one, as you will be inspired, you will find your inner strength. You will find your inner power, and you will bring into reality what you're dreaming of. So all of us together will create the new Haiti that we want to bring about. No one else can do it but us. No one else can do it but us. Work at your freedom. With your freedom, you'll get your power. With your power, we will take our planet and put it back to where it should be, a place where people enjoy living on it. Have a wonderful week. Have a great, great time. Grow, grow, grow. Use your inner strength. Put out your power. Don't be afraid. Unleash your power. What other people take 1,000 years to do, we can do it in a few minutes. Just rise, assume your power, be yourself, and let's protect our planet. Take good care. Love you.
All right, thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us for another session of Bayyinah and Friends, and we will see you again next Thursday. Thanks everybody. Have a great weekend.
Okay, thank you everybody. Merci tout le monde. Portez-nous bien.
Merci tout le monde.
Merci.
Merci, tout le monde. Thank you.
All right.
Merci.
France, how do I contact Nedgine?
Oh, Nedgine. Oh, I had all of her contact information. What I'll do is I'll get with Nedgine and she'll give me some additional contact information and I'll send it out with the recording.
Thank you.
All right, no problem. All right, everybody, have a great one. We'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Ayi bobo.
All right, see you.